So, hi everybody, this is Heather Box from the Million Person Project. Welcome. What today is about claiming your story. So, Julian and I work with so many incredible people from all over the world, nearly 2,000 people from 67 different countries. And one of the things that we hear from so many of you before you start working with us is this sort of self doubt. This, like, isn't there somebody else to tell their story that would be better in relationship to this subject matter? Or don't you think my story might be a little bit too personal? Or don't you think my story might be a little too boring? I mean, is this really a leadership story? These are the things that we are hearing all the time. And what I have to say is that every single person has a story. And when you share your story of what makes you uniquely you and what is driving you to do the work that you do, there is such immense power for connection with your audience. When you give your audience the opportunity to understand what it is that's driving you, they can see you in a whole new light. And you become a much more effective leader when people understand what it is that's driving you and they understand those values. And I think we all have experienced what it's like to be in the audience when someone is really, really grounded and telling their story in a bold and beautiful way, in a way that really helps you to understand what's driving them. It's an incredible experience. And those storytellers are great at moving people to action, whether that's to join your campaign or to buy your product or to, buy your art, to get involved in your community center, whatever it is, activism, whatever it is that you're working to get people rallied around, your story is a critical component to that. But before you get on stage to become this powerful storyteller moving hundreds or thousands or millions of people to action, the prerequisite is that you claim your story and that you really own it for you. And so that's where we start with people, is how to claim your story. And so what I want to do right now is just give you all a couple steps to take to start to claim your story. And one of the first steps is to just reflect. Let's do it right now. Let's reflect on two major turning points in your life. Just think about them off the top of your head. Two major turning points in your life. And you don't have to overthink it. Now, thinking about those major turning points in your life, what were the belief systems that were being shifted in those moments? So when we categorize something as a turning point, it's because something in our life happened that shifted the way that we saw or experienced the world. And so let's think about that. What were the beliefs that shifted for you in that moment? What were the values that were being shaped or challenged in those moments? This is the kind of story excavation that we have to do to really understand what is driving us and what the values are that are underpinning our work. And so, looking at that values work, let's talk about that for a minute. So a value can be something like compassion. A value can be something like integrity. Those are great words, but the question is, what does compassion mean to you? Or what does integrity mean to you? And so, an example from my life, one of the moments that really shaped who I am and shaped the way that I see the world is kind of a hard story. And it was a couple of days before my 12th birthday, and I woke up one morning on a Saturday, and my mom looked like a ghost. I knew something was really wrong. And she told me that my friend's little sister had been kidnapped. And so it was such an intense and crazy story. But what had happened is a man had walked in to my friend's family's house, their unlocked front door, because we lived in a community where no one locked their doors. And he had tied up her two friends who were there. Her mom was home, and he had kidnapped her. And that was Polly Klaas. Some of you may know of her. And when that happened, oh my God, we searched for her for like 30 something days. And then the police found Richard Allen Davis, who was the man who kidnapped her. And he led the police to her body. And that was like hard stop in my life, turning point. Like before that, I was so open. I loved strangers. I loved, we never locked our doors. After that, it was like bolts, like scared in my house, even when my parents were home with me, because I knew what was possible. And it was so terrifying to me. And so the belief systems that were shifting in me were, I'm not safe in the world. People are scary. Strangers are bad. And as I watched the case, he was on trial, and it was a very public case, a very public trial. I watched that, day in and day out. And I also started to feel really kind of bad for him. I just felt like, here's this guy. He's all alone. His parents didn't even come to the trial. No one came to the trial for him. He obviously, who wants to do that? No one wants to do that. Like, something is terribly wrong with this person. And I just felt disturbed by the idea that this was the end of his life and that everyone was just seeing him as a monster. And before that happened, I had never thought of that. I thought, oh my God, if you kill someone, you're evil. But watching him and like seeing his humanity and seeing that he was kind of nervous and, I felt bad for him. I felt bad that he had gotten into that situation so bad that that's what he had chosen to do. And so I really started to think like, oh my God, maybe he's unsafe and unfit to be in the public right now, but we should not be defined by the worst thing that we've done in our lives. Like our lives should not be judged on the worst choices we've made or the worst experiences that we've been through. And those are some values that really underpin my work at the Million Person Project. I really believe that we are nuanced, complicated people, and that our stories, the good, the bad, the unthinkable, they make up who we are. And it's critically important that we're not seen only for the worst moments of our lives, but that we are able to learn from our life experiences and change and transform and share that. And that's actually where so much wisdom and healing and transformation comes from. And so exploring those stories and exploring those turning points and understanding how those belief systems shifted, that's a really important piece of me claiming my story. And it was a big process for me to claim my story because I did fall into the category of maybe my story is, far out, or maybe it's kind of weird or boring, and maybe people won't understand me. And you know what? The truth of the matter is that it's my story. And if people understand me, great. If they don't, fine. Like me claiming my story for myself and saying, this is the truth. This is the truest thing I can say. That was super transformative for me. And it was a prerequisite to me starting the Million Person Project because I had this philosophy, but I had to really drink my own medicine and I had to claim my story for myself, even though I felt like it was boring or too privileged or confusing. These were all things I was telling myself about my story. And so I share that with you so that you can hopefully experience what it feels like to hear somebody tell a story about the origin of their belief system and those values. So that is one story that shaped my belief system. I have many others. And I want all of you to think about the power of claiming your story and the power of understanding yourself on that level. The power of understanding exactly why you value what you value and being able to articulate how that came to be. That's the prerequisite to getting on stage and holding an audience with your story. So before you even think about, oh, I want to do a TED Talk and I want to reach millions with my message, the first step is how to claim that for yourself and how to explore your story in a way where you really, really understand who you are and what has made you and shaped you to be who you are. So I hope that's useful to all of you today. And I just want to say that your life changes when you claim your story, that when you start to see yourself and your story as incredibly valuable to yourself, that's when you can be of value to others. So a lot of people say, well, I'll be willing to tell my story if it will help someone. Let your story first be powerful for you, and then let's talk about the impact we want it to have in the world. So that's sort of the homework of this video, is to explore your story and start to define the values that make you you. And then once we do that, then we can get into where you want your story to take you in terms of your work and in terms of your project. So thanks for tuning in.